preparing to enter the Powerhouse of Allied Paper Company as we continue with our exploration. This is a gorgeous building, roughly about 5 stories tall. I'll try and give you an idea of the scale of it here. See lots of large windows in the style of Albert Kahn, which makes this building particularly gorgeous, indicative of its 1920s era design. We're going to head in through this door here and show you some of the secrets that this gorgeous building holds. Matt, I hope you're not squeamish about getting on camera.
I don't care.
Okay, that's good. We see we're in the basement floor of the Powerhouse here. There's a spiral staircase to the second floor on each end of this room here. There's another one over there. We're going to be taking those upstairs later. This floor contains a variety of pumps and other sorts of things, electrical switchgear, piping, blowers, things like that that were used as support for the boilers upstairs. Lots of switchgear. You can kind of get all sorts of neat views in there, stuff like that. You can see this is for an air compressor. Similar cabinets of switchgear here. Wiring, distribution panels, things of that sort. Apparently mostly powered fans here. We see some more reciprocating engines, blowers, things like that. Lots of piping on the ceiling. Another rack of power equipment here. Please apologize if my hand is not quite so steady. I'm still a little bit tired from our previous expedition to Mill D earlier this week. Seems to be a rather intriguing area here. A door leads off into somewhere we may explore in a little while. Large device here, looks like it was used to handle air or steam. In fact, it seems to be some sort of water pump for the boiler. This is looking back from whence we came. Lots of large valves and pipes. This is what's called an integrator. It recorded things in little spiral charts here. And by examining some of these charts, we can get a perspective on how long this place is in operation, or at least this particular gear. Some more large switchgear over here. Huge circuit breakers. Look outside. We're going to continue over to this side of the mill. Over here. This here was probably actually the front door of the mill. See another view back here. Not too much of interest. We're going to try and move somewhat quickly by the door so people don't see us quite so obviously. Another area which we may proceed into in the future. I'll let you take a peek at the night shot capabilities of this camera. couple tanks and things of that variety in here. Some huge vents or something like that. Channel runs through the floor. We're going to go back into day site mode as we continue through. Large tank is here, mounted onto concrete with a big pipe going into it. Here's another gorgeous front door area of this power plant.
That's the guy that's going here with the city.
Yeah, here's another interesting area I'm going to explore briefly with night shot mode before we proceed up the stairs and show you the... Or actually, why don't we look around in here at the moment, because we usually don't get a chance to see this this area of the mill. See a humongous pipe here. It's really hard to give you an idea of the scale of this thing. Leads off somewhere down this corridor. Here's a little storage area under the steps that go to the second floor. This is an interesting area in here. It mostly contains a bunch of early 20th century electrical switchgear. I'm not sure if I'll be able to come up a night shot. No, not really. It's all black and white anyway. We're going to go back on a night shot here to show you how it looks in a little bit more accurate fashion. You see some parts here lying on the ground, integrators, scraps of metal, probably what used to be switchgear. Here's some more large cabinets that used to contain switchgear. Again, they've all been emptied out and parted. Hate to think how much power went through here at some point in time. All sorts of interesting stuff. You can see what the front of these used to look like as well. Things like that.
St. Regis Paper Company, Power Plant G, Kalamazoo Michigan.
There's some bleachers over here on the opposite wall, and I believe one of my compatriots has found something interesting here. St. Regis Paper Company, Power Plant G, Kalamazoo, Michigan. Should try and take the lid off there a little bit. That might work. Yeah, there we go. Just so the direct light kills the night shot a little bit. This apparently has something to do with a large battery. Interesting. Continuing around in the powerhouse here. Looking at more of these breaker panels.
They're smoking. Sun's going to floor.
There's butts all over the place. Can give you an idea of what some of these devices used to power here. You see that another door has actually been opened at some point in time here. High voltage equipment, just thought we'd warn you. Looking down through racks of power equipment here. There's a rather large switch. Some of these are still labeled. 500 kilowatt turbine, 2500 kilowatt engine. And you can also See some of these panels and their associated large switches. We also have the 1200 kilovolt amp generator. This plant was tied into consumer's power. Bryant #1 consumers and Bryant #1 station power. Bryant #2 consumers. Imperial station power. This is perhaps from an older power plant that used to be in operation here. Some other sorts of things can be found here. Now we're going to exit this rather large and intriguing area here. The power has all been shut off here by Consumers Power a couple of years ago, but up until then, the building was both abandoned and running. There's the rear of some of those pieces of switchgear I showed you earlier. We're going to move down this corridor here first. Pretty quiet corridor, some pipe racks across the wall. Moving into another room here. More switchgear. These particular things must have carried roughly 2300 volts. Boiler feed water pump, this one appears to be for. Here's some other ones here. And here's the interior of these breaker boxes. More of the same. You also see down here that there are a number of storage cabinets, things of that nature. They seem to be spare parts and things like that. You can see some integrators and some other sorts of devices here. A large thermometer. Some other sorts of things here. You can also see these large mounts in the floor that are used to support turbines that used to be installed on the second floor of this building. Look at a gorgeous set of windows out there. An old heater. More turbine mounts can be seen here. They used to have 2 turbines installed in this building. That seems to be the end of this large pipe here. You can look into its gaping maw if you wish. If you'll remember, we followed this pipe through from the other side over there. Looking over here, you see some more equipment, pumps and things of that nature. A couple of small tanks can be seen, and I can probably actually go off a night shot as we emerge back into the day here. The floor is littered with rolls of paper from the integrators. As we start to look again at these mounts here, we can see a couple of tanks and things like that. The mill has generally gone through hell here. There's rolls of printer paper. Dates on them are 1986, things like that. You can see just absolute tons and tons of these integrator papers on the floor. They've just been thrown here like vandals. They're dated at least 1994, so we can get an idea of the age of the powerhouse. Looking up, you can see some rather large tanks. And some nice windows. Things of that nature. Seems to be a room where things used to be stored, mostly sheets of integrator paper. And some more tanks and pumps can be seen on this side of the wall. It's interesting to investigate the contents of some of the things that used to be located here. This seems to be some sort of old employee manual of some sort. See split open containers of soda ash, which is essentially sodium hydroxide. More documents, chairs, things like that. Test sets. Informational manuals, things like that. You can see some hoses and things of that nature for pipes here. It is believed that these tanks used to contain water that was being chemically treated for use in the boilers. If we follow this small stairway up, it's mostly just a storage room. You can see tanks where chemicals were mixed into. This one was used for soda ash. And this one was used for sodium phosphate. You can see lots of soda ash packages here. Lime. Things like that. This stuff is actually rather useful for anyone interested in chemistry or running a power plant. It's probably been fouled by all the temperature and moisture cycles that have occurred here since the plant went out of business, however, to some degree. Now we're moving back into the plant as a whole here. And looking out here, we can get a nice view of the second floor, which we'll explore later. I'm going to explore this room briefly, just to give you an idea of what can be found here. The walls have pegs in them for integrator paper storage, and there seem to be stocks of it here in these shelves. There's also a table and a chair here.
Vacuum cleaner.
Excuse me?
Vacuum cleaner.
And also a vacuum cleaner, which probably has been dumped here by somebody. You never know, though. Taking another look at these impressive looking tanks and boilers. We're moving down what really just opens out to a garage door here. You see there's some vandalism on the walls, not as much as in little D though. This probably used to be somebody's office at some point in time. You can see a number of replacement parts and things of that nature can be seen. Shelves on the walls, a desk, some clothing even. charts, magazines, manuals. All littered the floors and tables in here. An old container used to hold safety bulletins, although they're long gone. The door slams, so we may have a visitor or something of that nature. This probably used to be a bathroom of some sort. You can see paper towel dispensers on the wall have been displaced. An interesting sort of sink sits on the floor, and the sharp wind outside leads me to think that it was indeed the wind slamming the door. More graffiti here in a locker room. The lockers seem to all have been cleaned out, however. See urinals, showers, things like that. Pretty common bathroom, I guess. We're heading back this way out of the restroom, moving toward the second floor of the building. You see a couple instances of switchgear and things like that on the wall. We're going to try and make our way through the piles of chemicals that have been open on the ground here by sloppy visitors, and up these stairs here. See some more instances of graffiti. This also allows you a nice view of the top of one of these tanks, for example. Another one can be accessed over there. This is the largest room in the building. It's quite gorgeous. You can see a couple tanks here in my way. A large tank. What used to be a supervisor's office is now overgrown by plant material, and some doors have been opened out onto the roof. We're going to continue this way briefly and explore the supervisor's office somewhat. Used to be a bunch of nice glasswork here, but it's all been since broken out. Large pipes and windows, things like that. Before I go in the supervisor's office, maybe I'll just try and give you a shot of the roof here. See across the mill. We're moving into the supervisor's office here. You can see some cabinets, some of them knocked over, some not. You can see desks, more filing cabinets. You can see a calendar from 1987, which is sort of interesting. The actions of some mill employees are being discussed. Continue to look here on the floor. Lots of manuals, things like that. It's rather hard to pick out pieces of information that are actually directly related to the history of the mill, and things that are just catalogs or operations manuals, which are not quite as interesting, speaking historically. Moving out of the power plant here, we're looking again at some large material storage tanks. You can see a couple of them here. They contain chemicals that were pumped out to the mill. This is the old turbine room. There used to be 2 turbines located here, but we can imagine that when the plant went out of business, they were probably scrapped. The Albert Kahn-inspired architecture of this room makes it gorgeous on nice sunny days such as this one, and eliminated the need for a large amount of artificial lighting. You can see that the artificial lights on the ceiling are rather few and far between. You can see there is a concrete panel here on which the turbines sat. And you can see looking below that there was access for various pipes and pieces of machinery. Perhaps we can give you a better view of that. See, a large crane, for example, can be seen here. Something like that. It was actually a chain fall. You can see the chains that were used to operate it. Many pipes are fed through an opening that go to Mill C. This equipment here was probably used to control the turbines at some point in time. Or controlled power distribution across the mill. There's other sorts of things here. Little
If you recall, Sean, this panel was on
dials and controllers. This was indeed operational in some capacity during our first exploration. Consumers Power later came and cleaned it out. If you look, there doesn't actually seem to be a whole lot left of these panels. A significant amount of equipment may have been removed just recently by Consumers Power. You can see a large wrench on the floor that was perhaps used to open these things. I'm going to look back over here and give you another view of the mill itself, or the plant, excuse me, just panning around. Give you a good idea of what we're seeing here. Gorgeous wide open space. You can see lots of windows. Things of that sort. You can also see a lot of windows here, which is rather unusual. May lead you to believe that this was actually built as 2 separate buildings or something like that, perhaps. And this used to be an exterior wall at some point in time, or it may have just been done as a design decision. It's hard to know for sure. This here is a staircase that leads back down to the first floor. I'll show you where that comes out just so you can get your bearings. This was probably the main staircase of the plant, and leads out this door here. Now we're going to move back up the staircase and show you the boiler room, which is where the rest of the primary work of this building was accomplished. You can see more humongous pipes litter the walls, and you can get a nice view of Mill C from out this window. You can see there's some alarm panels here that talk about the status of the boilers. I believe there's actually 4 boilers in this building. It makes sense that there's 4 panels reporting on their status. continuing into this area of the mill, we're looking sort of behind the boilers right now. There's not a whole lot to see here, but you'll rapidly see how that changes as we move around the side of the boiler mounts here. This was actually used, I think, at one point in time to check the status of the flame in the boiler. However, it was bricked over. You can see there's another door that leads out to a balcony here that was perhaps used for equipment loading at some point in time. This here is one of the two spiral staircases I identified previously that leads to the first floor of the mill. And as we look across the boiler area, we can see the other spiral staircase across the room. This is a rather interesting area of the mill because it features the mill's 4 large boilers and the accompanying control apparatus for said boilers. You see there's some interesting sorts of timers and things like that in here. This was apparently used to control the burners of the boilers when they were in operation. Sort of intriguing equipment, really. This is manufactured by a company called Combustion Equipment Associates. You're looking at boiler number 1 here. This is kind of a neat apparatus. You can see some large pipes, some of which have been vandalized. Thermometers, things like that. You can see there's also space in between the boilers. And it also really gives you an appreciation for the scope of the boilers, how tall they are. There's some cabinets and other sorts of things here as well. Monitoring apparatus, things of that nature. You can see here there is as I move back, it was a large operator's panel for various attributes of the boiler. You can see some of this probably reproduces functionality on earlier panels that I showed you. Gives you the status of the boiler. Fans, things like that. More chart recorders, they've been opened and destroyed. Gauges, things like that. Each of the boilers has a similar control apparatus, so it's roughly the same across. Four times over. You can see that this was maintained by a company called Atlas Boiler on South 8th Street, which is sort of interesting to know. You can see a little something. This is a glass apparatus that was probably used to check on the status inside the boiler. See a couple other things here. Lots of cabinets and the ubiquitous refrigerator. We seem to see a lot of those here at the mill. If you look in here, you can see some other sorts of interesting things. Apparently these boilers were built by a company called Combustion Engineering Company of New York. And you can see here that these were used to check on the status of the boiler. I'm not sure if I can really give you a very good view of what's going on in here, but this is what their boilers used to look like. With night shot. And you can see that as we move back here, there's also a stairwell that would allow workers to access a small catwalk that allowed them to examine the rear of the boilers. The rear of the boilers isn't very technically interesting to us, so we're going to continue in this direction here. Another spiral staircase can be seen by the control of boiler number 4, and also another door by which a balcony can be seen. Perhaps once again equipment was loaded through these doors at some point in time. I'm going to then kind of turn and pan and give you an idea of what the entire room looks like here from the other side. You can see a large sheet that was hung to keep the sun out, perhaps, or also to insulate. We're walking down here, looking at some lockers once again that contain perhaps people's personal effects or just plant supplies, all sorts of things. We see there's also a toilet on this floor, which is actually a new revelation for me. And it appears it has been recently used, or at least in a more recent fashion than I'd prefer. Then if you look, this door also leads us once again out here to the main turbine room. Going to turn around once again here. If you like, we can give you a view of some of this equipment here under the boiler. Nothing particularly interesting. You can see some very large pipes and things of that nature that go into the boiler here. And this may have actually, in fact, been a burner or something like that. Continuing on, we're caught up slightly here as some photographs are taken. We'll continue moving. We can see that this plant was converted to natural gas at some point in time. Coal used to be conveyed into the building, and you can still see some evidence of coal conveyance apparatus that we'll take a closer look at when we move up to the following floors. Out through these windows you can get a nice view of Allied's Papers, Mill D. Continuing along here. You can see more gorgeous footage of Mill D. We're moving up these rather sturdy looking steps in an attempt to show you what the rest of the building looks like. There isn't actually much to the top 3 floors of the building, as they're mostly taken up by the boilers, which you can get a better view of as I show you here from the top of the staircase. You can see some large pipes move across a catwalk which goes to Mill D. As you can see, there really isn't much to the 3rd floor of the mill. This is the street from here. Also see some various apparatus behind the boiler.
Just get out of sight.
Continuing up for the 4th floor of the power plant here. Fourth floor is once again not much to it. Watch your head, the clearances are rather close. You can also see some additional views of that, and there's also a door that allows access to a small area here, and the turbine room, which we can look over. We're going to move up to the fifth and final floor.
Do that actually. This panel's loose.
What is?
This that you're walking on right now.
Okay. Well, I'm already on it. Yeah, why not?
I'm not going.
You're not going up? Okay, just wait for me a second. Taking a little bit of a risk here to show you the fifth and final floor of Allied Paper Company's Powerhouse. You can see here, looking around, that there is another stairwell up, but we're not going to take it. See the tops of some boilers. It's a gorgeous view of Moose Sea. If you look over here, you can see the remnants of this coal conveyance apparatus, which was used to load coal into the boilers. There's a catwalk which can show us this more clearly, but we're going to abstain from making use of it. There is one more floor of Allied Paper which will show us the coal conveyor and give us a beautiful view upon the city, but
I'm heading down. You guys longer.
we're going to abstain as one of our explorers is getting a little bit jumpy.
Are we on the right staircase?
There's only one staircase, sweetheart.
There's a big pipe there.
Carefully moving down the stairs here. Sorry guys, it may be loose, but it's not dangerous. It's just not bolted down. It's still solid. Moving down another staircase here. This can be sort of trying work in the summertime. It's warm, tensions are running high. And the staircase is also very steep. So you have to be careful not to fall down in your excitement. After our abortive attempt to examine the top of the mill, we're bringing you back once again to the boiler room. Gorgeous building indeed. Now that we have reached the bottom of the stairwell, we can continue on our way out of the mill. The most discreet way would be to make use of one of these spiral staircases that we discovered earlier. staircase here. And as we make our way down, we find that we are deposited almost exactly at the point at which we entered the building. And so, once again, as we close our view of this gorgeous building, I thank you for taking a historical interest in one of Kalamazoo's oldest and most defunct industries. Good evening.